I have a love-hate relationship with horror games. On one hand, I hate how easily I get jump scared. On the other hand, I love the stories that they tell. They're beautifully woven narratives that are represented through the characters, creature designs, atmosphere, and those individual aspects are great on their own. Yet, no other game brings these elements together with the same impact as Silent Hill F. Well, except maybe the other Silent Hill games, but we can ignore them for now. Now, I was originally going to do a full breakdown of the game and its story, but if I'm being honest, so many people have already done that, and I'm not trying to copy here. I'd rather just focus on the main aspect, the scare factor, which is the reason why I started this series. Welcome back to Horror Quest, where we embark on a journey to find the best and scariest horror games. In the last episode, we talked about Visage, and today, it's Silent Hill F. I don't like long intros, and I'm sure you don't either, so without further ado, my name is Josh, and I hope you enjoy. Silent Hill is already known for its convoluted storytelling. It doesn't really give you a timeline to follow, rather it gives you the frame, then the pieces of a character's trauma or story. It's not about being cohesive, but more so a puzzle to put together, and I like that. Silent Hill F is a story about Hinako Shimizu, a young girl who struggles with the strict gender roles of Japanese culture. She's a strong, stubborn girl who refuses to conform to society's ideology and expectations about marriage. Throughout the entire game, you're bombarded with imagery dedicated to Hinako's fear of tying the knot, misogyny, but also her past trauma. The game takes place in 1960s Japan after the war in a fictional town named Silent Hill. I'm just kidding. In all the other games, it's Silent Hill, but here it's actually called, and I'm gonna do my best here, Ibisu Gaoka. You're not given the full story in detail, rather you have an introduction to set the scene, and as the game goes on, you're given more details that make you nod your head in understanding. You have a lot of aha moments in this game, like, oh, I get it now, or ah, that makes sense, or oh, what? Hinako's distaste for marriage and roles is obvious from the start, but her trauma from her abusive parents and betrayal from her close friends, they become more prominent later on. And look, I always enjoy a game with a main plot with smaller themes interwoven in between. It definitely gets confusing after a while, especially with how Silent Hill showcases its themes. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you a very brief rundown of the story of Silent Hill F. Spoilers ahead. I don't want to hear any comments about, oh, you spoiled the game. I'm telling you right now, okay? Spoilers ahead. For me, I think it's best to explain it by starting at the very end. The Hinako we play as is actually her younger self. We can guess around high school era, freshman or sophomore. The real present-day Hinako is a woman in her early 20s who was forced into an arranged marriage. In the midst of her wedding day, she had a psychotic episode and killed 3 people. 2 men and 1 woman. My guess is it was her husband, her father, and her mother. During the end credits, we can view the crime scene, a knife and some pills. Now these pills came from her childhood best friend Shu, who was growing up to become a doctor. During their childhood, he gave Hinako painkillers to help with her tension headaches as a result of her family dynamic back home, but unfortunately in the process became addicted to them. Her father was an angry drunk who wished for Hinako to be more like her older sister, Junko, the perfect traditional woman who got married. His anger stems not only from Hinako's disobedience of culture, but their crippling debt. And of course, it's displaced towards his family. After her mother's surgery, her father was in so much debt that he sold Hinako on the streets. Her mother is this spineless rat who doesn't really stand up for not only Hinako, but herself. She allows her husband to be the way he is and to do whatever he wants to do. From Hinako's perspective, this is almost as bad as the abuse. And one of the main reasons, I think, why Hinako doesn't want to get married, because she doesn't want to end up like her mother, and wants to make her own decisions, even if it's wrong. Now, one of the main characters of the story is this man in the fox mask. He represents the husband that Hinako is supposed to marry. Throughout the whole game, he's coaxing her into trusting him, protecting her, comforting her, but at the same time, transforming Hinako into the perfect woman for himself. Which I will say, he may be into furries because Hinako acquires a wolf arm later in the game. I'm just saying, look, I get it, it's symbolic, but yeesh, start a DeviantArt page at this point. Ritual after ritual, Hinako is stripped of her identity symbolically. Near the end of the game, she's stripped of her face, replaced by a fox mask, marked on the back like some animal, and nearly kills her old self in the process. Junko, who got married and was the perfect bride, her face is never seen in the game because her face, her identity, It doesn't matter at this point. Hinako's friends have their own dilemmas too. They're the side characters that tie into Hinako's story. See, to them, marriage is betrayal because back then, marriage wasn't really a holy union, it was more so a transaction between families. If Hinako were to get married, she would be faceless and absorbed into her husband's title. Hinako during her childhood liked to hang out with boys more than girls, and Shu was one of them, as a matter of fact, her probably closest friend. He didn't really care about gender roles and treated Hinako just as a friend rather than a girl. However, his care for her was careless because it ultimately led to her addiction. And realistically, he didn't know any better than she did. Loyal, yes, but misdirected guidance to be sure. Sakuko is this isolated, strange girl who latched onto Hinako as basically a parasite would. She calls us a traitor multiple times when we first see her because Hinako got married at this point. Sakuko is the first to die from the fog almost instantly because Hinako's marriage was the end-all be-all. Once she got married, she was no longer a friend, only a traitor. Rinko is outwardly poised and detached, yet confesses in her diary to underlying insecurity and immaturity. Her superior demeanor concealed a deep fear of abandonment, and she later acknowledged remorse for her treatment of Hinako. Her love for Shu was a wedge in between their friendship and led to her ultimate demise. Throughout the Dark Shrine, we are tasked with killing each and every single one of our friends, letting go of those attachments as we prepare for our wedding day. We travel through the past, confronting our trauma and fears, the final boss being this giant monster in a wedding gown. Not really subtle at all at this point, but you get the idea here. And that's like the general core of the story. I missed a lot of details, but that's the basic idea. Now to me, the concept of the story isn't really that scary. I mean, marriage? Yeah, not exactly something to send a chill down my spine. But then I thought, maybe it's not what the story is specifically about. See, the horror of Silent Hill in general is not in the monsters, but from the intricate ways we wrestle with ourselves and what we've done, facing our past mistakes. Hinako struggles with that. Regardless if I find it scary or not, it's still a dang good story. I think a great horror game has at least a good story, whether the premise strikes a disturbing tone or not. However, what Silent Hill F does very well is having the story leak into the other aspects of what makes a great horror game. For example, the monster designs and what they represent. See, many games have monsters just to be monsters, but when there's meaning behind them, it makes it all the better in my opinion. Each monster specifies a specific insecurity, fear, or theme from Hinako's perspective. For example, this is the Kashimashi, the first enemy in the game, a disturbingly distorted womanly figure who wields a knife. They have unnatural, twisted appendages with doll-like joints. They're a representation of how Hinako views women in a marriage, faceless, stripped of their identity, and forced to conform to beauty standards. Their bodies twist violently to please their husbands and make chilling noises that may allude to what their name means. Kashimashi is a Japanese word meaning noisy, boisterous, or clamorous, and it's often used to describe the overwhelming sound of multiple women talking loudly. It derives from the Japanese proverb, forgive me if I mispronounce this, Onna sanin yoreba kashimashi, meaning, when three women gather, it is noisy. Which, I mean, it's not wrong. So this monster not only represents how Hinako views women in a marriage, but maybe a loose perspective on how their husbands view them too. It's covered in bruises, according to its description, leading to possible abuse. I mean, think about how this monster is introduced. It's pushed hard into frame, like a freaking football player, and it's forced into the ground, like an abusive husband who pushes his wife down when he gets angry. It's depth and details like this that makes me appreciate a creature's design all the more. And this extends to the other enemy designs as well as the boss fights. The Ara Abari is this giant ball of flesh and rage with a wide mouth that deafens all other noise and pleas. It represents untempered rage and pure violence. In the boss fight between Hinako and her parents, her father transforms into one of these creatures, symbolizing her father's anger and unwillingness to listen to anyone. My favorite monster is perhaps the most disturbing one. I forgot what its name was, and I don't really care to look it up, so I'm just gonna call it the Pregnant Abomination. And I mean, I certainly made a face when I first saw it. It's gross. And it's also pretty obvious what this monster is supposed to represent. fear or disgust of pregnancy. It has numerous swollen bellies that mimic a pregnant lady near birth. It slugs around, spitting out disgusting eggs that spawn more monsters. And there's even a withered version in the real world that has a more repulsive figure. Like, if I were to make a video on the most disgusting or disturbing creatures in video games, this thing would at least get an honorable mention. I love horror games with downright gruesome enemy designs. Silent Hill F nails that category. I don't think it's the best I've seen overall, but it certainly is one to remember, especially the pregnant one. When it comes to the atmosphere, again, I think Silent Hill F does pretty good. What's great is that there are two main settings, so you don't get bored with one or the other. Ibisu Gaoka is an excellent backdrop for the sequence of events in the story. It's this old, tiny town without much value anymore. It's been covered in a dense fog, an iconic look for the Silent Hill series. But what sets it apart is the infestation of the red spider lilies, a real-life Japanese flower that means death, loss, and separation, with strong ties to funerals and the afterlife in many East Asian cultures. This ties directly to the other setting in Silent Hill F, the Dark Shrine. Think of it as the other world from previous Silent Hill games with a unique cultural twist on it. As you warp back and forth between these two settings, Ibisu Gaoka becomes more disheveled and infected. My favorite place, without question, is the middle school. I don't know what it is, but I've been playing a lot of horror games where there's a school setting, and I'm not complaining, because they've been some great chapters in the game. The middle school is quite normal at first, which to me is almost worse than being infected. But slowly, as you unlock more of the area, it becomes apparent that the disease of the town was just hiding itself. Also, the puzzles were great here. Silent Hill F's middle school is, to me, Silent Hill 2's hospital. I'm not saying they're of equal quality, alright? I love the hospital way more than the middle school, but both were my favorite parts of the game. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, I like this setting. I think it works. My only complaint is I wish the otherworld factor or the Dark Shrine was incorporated into Ibisu Gaoka. Like in Silent Hill 2, you go through the apartments, and then when you enter the otherworld, it's the apartment still, but now it's like infected and gross and blah blah blah. Like, I wish we just got to see more of the town, you know? Other than that, I don't really have any complaints about it. And so far, Silent Hill F has not disappointed me in every single category. But the main question here, was Silent Hill F scary? Was I terrified when playing the game? My answer is no, not at all actually. See, despite all the great things I've said about this game, despite all the praise I've given it thus far, I genuinely got scared less than a handful of times throughout my entire playthrough. So, what's the reason here? The gameplay is easily the worst part about Silent Hill F. It's not that it's bad. Okay, well, it kind of is. And my main issue, and hear me out on this, is that the combat is not good enough to justify how long the game is and how many times you have to fight enemies in this game. You have your basic light and heavy attack, a dodge button, a parry that sucks butt, and like that's about it. It's just enough of what you need to get through the game. But if you're gonna give me the bare minimum, I'm going to have the bare minimum experience. Stay with me now. I got tired of it pretty quickly. Not to mention resource management and weapon durability. Those two mechanics by themselves are great in a survival horror game. But Silent Hill F is a psychological horror game. It's not supposed to be like that. And look, it's not the end of the world, but it can certainly grind your gears in certain situations, which to me, if I get frustrated, I'm not scared. I played on the easiest difficulty because I'm not trying to play Dark Souls here. I play this game for the story and horror factor. I don't care about doing a parry-only hitless run. And the puzzles were fine, I don't really care about that. It's just the combat that has my feathers rustled a bit, especially near the end of the game. Remember the pregnant lady? Well, during the final sections of the game, you run into her multiple times surrounded by other enemies. She acts like a mini-boss, but with how limited our resources are, and with how long it takes, I'd rather just run past her. Except, the game forces you to beat this thing to the ground, because now she has the ability to block the road forward, there we go, with walls of flesh. And then, during the finale, right before the final boss fight, you run through a gauntlet of enemies that you have to do. This is not a combat-focused game. This is not Silksong. I don't get why we're doing this, you know? And it's a small thing. It's the final part of the game. It's not like a huge section, all right? I'm aware of that. Really, I just think it's how slow and clunky Hinako is. The lag after her dodging is so annoying to me. The huge wind-ups to actually get a heavy attack off. I understand she's a small girl in high school, but that doesn't make it any more fun. Stamina is a thing too. At first, I didn't mind it. I thought it was okay. Then I had to face more enemies in more confined spaces, and I got pulverized because I was like, it just sucks. There is no problem with the games without stamina. Funny enough, the Silent Hill series, in general, doesn't really have great combat. The Silent Hill 2 remake was the best by far, and even then, it does not compare well to most other horror games I've played. Now, I'm not saying the game overall is terrible because the gameplay was bad, but I'm sure you understand that gameplay has quite the huge role in making a good video game. It does not matter how good the atmosphere, music, creature designs, or story is. If that does not translate well into the gameplay, if it's annoying to deal with, the horror factor gets pushed to the side. And here's the thing, I'm not gonna rate this game entirely based how incredible the gameplay is, or how fast my heart was racing during every single encounter. That's not the point. Because I understand that I've been playing horror games and watching horror stuff for so long, I'm very numb to these type of experiences. I have friends that I know for a fact would crap themselves playing this game, and I kinda wanna see that, but they're not gonna ever play this game. Regardless, I always try to keep that in mind, okay? Especially when reviewing and scoring these games. It's become now more so an appreciation of the attempt, rather than the attempt of actually scaring me, if that makes sense. If the gameplay was actually fun, or at least not annoying, then I wouldn't have said anything about this. And don't get me wrong, there were some great sections, okay? For example, I really liked the Scarecrow section. You come across a field covered in a thick fog. Your job is to find the way out by pulling the pins off the right Scarecrow that then points in the right direction. If you choose the wrong one, it'll spring to life. Now you have 5 of these guys chasing you around because you're too lazy to kill them all and thought you could play cat and mouse until you find the right one. In the end, I think Silent Hill F is a decent Silent Hill game, but a pretty good horror game. I don't think it stacks up to other masterpieces I've covered like Silent Hill 2 or Fear and Hunger, but it certainly scores way above most others. When it comes to the sanity meter, the lower the score, the better the game. I'm giving Silent Hill F a solid 20. It was all around great in almost every single category except gameplay, which heavily affected how scared I was overall and the overall experience. Although I will say there were multiple endings in which you have to play through the whole game again, and it's a good game, not that good. But don't worry, my friends, this is not the last horror game you've seen from me, especially this month since it's spooky season. I'm already playing another horror game that I'm excited to share with you all, and I may actually do a ranking on my favorite creepy creatures because you know what? It sounds like a pretty good idea. Well, that's about it for me today. So if you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and to subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone, and of course, stay safe.